Today we're going to talk about some retirement planning. Kaleb Roebuck with us this morning, the lead financial advisor of Milestone Financial Group. Kaleb, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Aaron.
Ashleigh Franco with us as well this morning, financial advisor. Good morning. Ashleigh, how are you? How was your weekend?
Really great. We went...
All right, so the art of managing retirement assumptions. So retirement is full of variables, that's for sure. We've touched on that. Investment returns, inflation, life expectancy, all of these things, Kaleb, that you put into your whole package of planning, right? So what are some of the important assumptions, and why is it important to get these right for planning?
Yeah, and you hit on basically three of the main ones, investment returns, inflation, and life expectancy. And, for the science part of financial planning and retirement planning, it is built on estimates and forecasts. And, even small miscalculations in those assumptions can create major shifts over time. And what we see is, minor difference in return rates or expenses or, higher inflation, can definitely impact somebody's ability to sustain their savings throughout retirement. So it is an important factor to consider those.
Yeah. It's not just numbers on the page. Those assumptions can affect real decisions like when you retire or how much you can withdraw. And that's why we kind of recommend reviewing your plans regularly and adjusting as needed.
Everything's online nowadays, and you can find a calculator for everything, and there are online calculators for retirement projections. I can go plug in my information and get everything I need. So how reliable is that? How accurate is that, Kaleb?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And right along with that, there's how-to videos, TikTok videos, YouTube videos.
Well, if it's on TikTok.
Yeah, it's got to be true.
I mean, come on now.
Well, and especially in the investing landscape, there is a lot of these that, are good, useful tools or can be good information, but, they oftentimes oversimplify things or not giving you the real picture, or it's not tailored to your own personal situation. And many calculators use default settings for factors like inflation and returns. And if someone's using those and they assume a 3% inflation rate, but it actually turns out to be 3.5% or 4%, that's actually a huge difference. 1% doesn't sound like very much, but in the course of 20, 30, 40 years, those type of, miscalculations, for example, could be off or miss, things. So, a lot of times you do got to know if you're using those calculators what it is. But, again, when we work with folks, it's all those factors plus your own personal data.
Retirement assumptions, some of the things to talk about. Let's walk through some of those critical ones that people make in retirement. Okay, investment return. Yeah. Ashleigh.
Huge one. Most people assume they're going to get the same returns in retirement that they did in working, but market conditions consistently change as we have seen this year. And oftentimes when you retire, you move more conservative. And a more conservative investment approach might be necessary depending on someone's situation. What we talk and relate that back to a lot is risk capacity. When you're working, you're putting away and you want those drawdowns in the market because you're able to buy more shares during those drawdowns. Mm-hmm. Flip side, when you retire, or you're pulling on that money, you want that money to be a little more stable for you. So generally people get a little more conservative. So it's all about your risk capacity and risk tolerance there.
Well, and right along with that, that's why, planning, isn't always about, chasing the highest returns. Most people think, hey, if I'm working with Milestone Financial Group, I'm working with Kaleb and Ashleigh, they're going to get me the highest returns, or that's their job. And that's part of it is to get the best returns, but not always the highest. But it's right. That balance between some of those things. And like Ashleigh said, your risk tolerance and capacity, because it's about finding that approach that aligns with kind of all those things. Again, right now, the times we're going through, test your risk tolerance and capacity right now.
So last week did that.
Absolutely. So that's what we tell hey, if what's gone on the last week or a couple weeks, is doing that, then your risk tolerance probably needs to be looked at and readjusted. If you've kind of been able to ride through that and not look at your Fidelity 401k every 5 minutes, you're probably in line, too. Because, like, again, what we talk about with clients is dialing in that risk score and, know what you need before retirement, what your portfolio looks like, a certain type of risk, and then what type of risk does your portfolio need in retirement. Those are two different time periods, maybe look similar as far as risk, but there is some shifts and changes in there.